Welcome back to Board Game Breakdown. I am Kristofer Solomon here with a brand new how to play video, and we are going to be looking at the game Wondrous Creatures. So real quick before we get into the video, this is going to concentrate on solo mode, but I will tell you that if you are looking for multiplayer help, you can definitely watch the setup video as well as the first gameplay chapter, because those are almost identical to multiplayer, and then you can skip the last chapter on Tingent, which is the AI opponent. If you're here for solo, make sure to watch that last chapter so you can see how that is controlled. Also, if you're not quite ready to watch a 30-minute video on this and you're just kind of curious on what is Wondrous Creatures, then click this link here for our burst video. It'll be about 3 to 4 minutes and just kind of give you a high overview of how to play the game. So Wondrous Creatures is a worker placement game, but also tableau builder. So you're going to be putting out crew members, which you have 3 of, but one of them is a captain, which you see here with the little meeple on the cool dinosaur slash water creatures, depending on what color you got. So your captain will have some variable player powers that you'll unlock, which is a lot of fun, and you're going to be collecting resources and eggs on this board here. And when you're not placing out workers to get resources, you are playing cards. So there's 120 something cards, all different crazy creatures that you'll be putting into your reserve as you play them in hopes to collect certain tags for achievement trophies. I think Arc Nova, when it comes to that, there's a pretty good similarity between building out your reserve and grabbing achievements when you have them. Obviously, you have the worker placement, which is a little different than normal worker placement games, so definitely stick around and see how that actually works. But before we get into the video, I would like to remind you to please go to the website at boardgamebreakdown.com, where we have a lot of written reviews. We have links to all of our other videos, or you can go to YouTube, obviously go to the channel and hit subscribe. I have a lot of videos coming out over the next couple weeks, so I definitely want you guys to get updates when those come out so you can check them out. We're also on Instagram and Mastodon. You can find all that information in the links or description. And without further ado, let's jump into this crazy island of Wondrous Creatures. All right, so we are going to knock out the setup of the main board here for the solo game. And then after that, we'll move to the individual player board and the AI opponent that you'll be using. So I've already put some stuff out here just to save us some time, but I'll note that this right here is the main board. This is the supply board. Typically this is up top, but I put it over here because it doesn't really matter. And I kind of like that it's detached so you can move it around depending on, who's sitting at the table, what's easiest to reach. So this will be sideways for this video. That way you can see everything. So the first thing we're going to do is put the eggs in the bag. So you'll see a collection of eggs over here. What you want to do is take 5 of each of the 7 species. So I'll tell you what they are in just a second, but you're going to pull those out. So that'd be 35 eggs. And then we're going to place them in this nice bag here to get started here in setup. So just pick these up so you can see. We have insects represented by the little butterfly. We have dragons represented by, of course, a dragon. We have mammals represented by the monkey. We have reptiles, lizard, amphibian maybe, I don't know. We have birds. We have, I guess, like crustaceans, crabs. My wife thought this was a rabbit, but I think it's supposed to be like a crustacean. And then lastly, we have fish. All right, so those are your 7 species. I've already grabbed out 5 of each. So we're going to chunk them here into this nice bag. And then every other egg that you have left over, you're going to put over there into the supply. There's a spot marked on the supply board for you to place the eggs in, so you will do that. All right, let me finish up here. Sorry, this is boring to watch. Someone's hand grab up tiny pieces of cardboard. All right, so there we go. Check that up. We'll use that in a second. Let's go ahead and put some other stuff out there. Along with the eggs on the supply board, you're going to have a mixture of two other tokens, and these are here. This is an energy token. This is a butterfly net. So you'll just pour a pile of those over here for everyone to grab. And then you're going to have your creature cards. There's 120 something of them. You're going to shuffle them all up, throw them right there. We'll place some out here in a second and deal some out. We'll do that here at the end of the setup video. All right, so a couple other things you'll see. We have habitat tiles. On one side, they look like this. On the other side, they look like this. Whoops. They have the different habitats that the species live in. You'll see that there are some already kind of printed on the board. So you'll just take these, you'll shuffle them up. You'll put them over here, and then you're going to flip over 3 so they are visible to yourself. And I'll mention that this setup is basically exactly the same for multiplayer. So if you're interested in multiplayer, not solo, you can still watch and learn how to set the game up. You have trophies here that you need to place out, and you'll notice that there's these white ones that say 1 for 1 player. So you'll fill up the whole white spots. So there's 8 trophies. And then you have another 2 for 2 players. You also will want to make sure when you put the board out that you're on this side for 1 or 2 player, and then the back side is 3 to 4 players, and it has more spots for trophies and things. But for the solo game, we're just going to throw out these 8. You'll also find 5 what's called time tokens. So on one side, there's like a gold egg. On the other side is a symbol. So what you want to do with these is you're going to mix them up, and then we're going to take 2, and we'll use those in a second, but the other 3 can just go up here, and you'll see a circle with a gold outline. So you'll place them on that. The 2 that we kept out, we're going to flip over, and we're going to look at the symbol. So this is either a V or a caret and an X. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab up our bag, and you'll see these symbols all throughout the map. We're going to place 1 egg on each X or each V that we can find in the map. So we're just going to pull them out randomly. There's a V. There's an X. There's a V. There's a V. X. X. V. All right, I think that is it. You will notice on an egg, here, let's look at our crustacean friend, that there is a front and a back. This means it's hatched. We'll get into that. But all eggs really start out on this side, which is the unhatched side. So when you place them out on the board, make sure that you are placing them like that. All right, so the bag can go back over here. These 2, you're going to shuffle up, and then they're going to go in the last 2 spots. You should have a little time tracker token, big chunky token, especially for just moving slightly down the time track. You're going to put that on the very first spot there on the time track. And then we need to fill up our achievements down here. So you'll notice there's 3 brown ones, 2 teal ones, 2 gold ones. So we got to fill those up. So you'll take them, and we're going to start with the brown. And you'll notice that one side has 2 spots, one side has 3 spots, and then it also tells you up here how many players is for. But For the solo game, we're going to use the 1 and 2 square side. So we're just going to shuffle these up, and then we're going to throw out 3 brown ones at random. So those are like main achievements. So we're going to go there. The rest of these cards can get tossed to the side. Then we're going to fill in these next. And there is a rhyme and reason to why we do that. So we'll shuffle up the gold ones, and we're going to grab the first one. So you want to look at the 2 species, so crab and bird, and then you're going to grab the next one, and it's mammal and dragon. Now, if this one happened to have a crab or a bird on it, we would discard it and grab another card, because you want these cards to represent 6 of the 7 species, and you don't want the duplicates. So we'll put this down here. So we have crab, bird, dragon, mammal. So what that means is we're going to look through our blue cards, and we're going to go ahead and discard all those species cards because we've already represented them over here. So we don't have a fish, we do have a crab, we don't have an insect, we do have a bird, we don't have a lizard, we have a mammal and a dragon. So these 4 species that we've already represented over here are going to get discarded. The remaining 3, those species that we don't have out on the table yet, we're going to shuffle up, and we're going to put down 2 of them. So in this game, there's no achievement for collecting fishies. So each game, there's going to be 1 species not represented here, and you will probably still play fish and grab fish eggs because they will help you in other areas. You just won't have a specific species achievement for those. All right, lastly, what we're going to do is fill in these spots over here. There's 6 spots, and that is considered the wilderness. And that's kind of like, the market for where you can draw cards at a lot of games. You're probably used to something like this. I'm going to try not to hit the camera. So we'll just grab out 6. Don't worry, I will eventually explain what's on the cards and how the cards work, but we'll do that in the gameplay section. And that's it. That's set up, at least for the main board. So I'm going to move this stuff, zoom in a little bit so you can see what you need from an individual player perspective, as well as what you need for the AI opponent. So be right back. All right, so I've slid the main board and the supply board out of the way. Don't worry, those will be coming back, but we're going to concentrate real quick on what you need for yourself as well as the opponent here in the 1-player game. So our stuff's over here, the opponent stuff is over here, so we will start looking at that. So first you need a board, and there are 4 colors you can choose from. In this little demo, I will be the yellow. The opponent is going to be red. He does not get a board. But I'll show you real quick what it looks like, what the white and blue boards look like. So here's the red board. It's like a mountainous region. There's a snowy region. There's some sort of island. And then the yellow is, I guess, just a desert. So we'll use the yellow. But you grab up your board of the color you want to use, and then there is a few other things in that color that you'll want to grab. So you'll want to grab your 4 little resource trackers, and you're going to place them on 1 of each resource. And there are 4 resources right there. We'll talk about those later. You're going to want to get your little achievement markers that look like a quill in an ink bottle. So you should have 6 of those in your color. You're going to place them over here in these spots. You want to get the lock token of your color. We'll talk about that in a second. You will grab your 3 animals, whatever. So the yellows, I'll show you all these too because they're kind of cool. The yellows have these dinosaurs. The red, who my opponent is going to play, is this sort of dinosaur scorpion thing. If you chose to be the white player, you would get this, which is kind of like Sisu, the dragon, or maybe Never Ending Story for anyone that's old like me. And then the blue, of course, get a sea monster, sea dragon thing. So you'll grab 3 of those in your color. Um, you'll notice one has a magnet, so we'll get into that in a second. You'll grab a butterfly net because you will start with that. And then what you need to do is you need to grab up the captain boards. So there's lots of them. There's one more. Octavia, she's sitting over there. So, it's up to you how you want to do this. I think the instruction manual says to pass out 2 of them to each person, and then they get to choose which one they want to use. So once you choose, you will go get to find your little meeple that matches your captain board. So here's a few examples. I really like this guy because he's gigantic and tattooed, but he loves little creatures, so he's hugging a kitten. This lady, she's good at going to the mountains. So I'll use our tattooed guy for this. His name is, well, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but here's what the captain card looks like. You're going to slide it into there, like so, and then we'll get our meeple. So remember this guy. And then he will go on top of the creature that has a magnet. Boom. So he will be riding the dinosaur. The other 2 dinos just get to be riderless. All right, so you'll also get 8 cards, and you're going to look at these and draw down to 4, but we'll talk about that at the end. Let's really quick. Oh yeah, the last thing you need in your color is a score token, which that will go on the main board. So we'll set that over there. So for the AI opponent, for all the different captain boards you did not select, if you flip them on back, they have the different difficulties for solo. And you'll see that there's 2 of each. That way, no matter who you're playing as, you can go against any difficulty. So we'll just pick out the easiest one here, Lazy Tangent. So he gets his board. Just kind of scoot these down like this. He gets a deck of Automa cards like that. So just shuffle them up. All right, put that over here. He needs one of his resource markers. That's just going to go on this first spot. It's going to move through that. He also needs his scoring token, which will go with your scoring token on the main board. He does need his 6 achievement quill ink bottle things. Instead of going on a board, they just go into a pile. He will have 3 gears, and you'll notice that they match the colors of the achievements. I'll show you when we get started where they go on the main board, but for right now, just have them next to this. And then the opponent only gets 2 creatures, where as far as a regular player goes, they get 1. They get 3. So you'll take the magnet, and then you usually play against Tangent, the robot guy, but you could just play against anybody, I guess. Doesn't really matter. So we'll slot him on there. Make sure he's on there. Cool. He's ready to roll. And sit him over there. Okay, so at that point, you're ready to pull up your 8 cards and go over them and discard down to 4. I'm not going to go over right now what you're looking for in these cards because I think that'll be better suited in the gameplay section. So I will just grab up 4, place them here in my hand, and the other 4 get discarded. And that's it for your player board and Tangent's player board. So we've basically set the whole game up. Again, if you're watching this for multiplayer, besides this little thing over here, everything else is basically the same on the main board and out here. You would just obviously, each player would get a setup like this. So I will fix the camera so that you can see the whole shebang Hopefully, I'm not going to cut anything off. I'll do my best. And then we will talk about how an action works or how a turn works, the actions, and then we'll play around it too. All right, welcome back. So I have moved the main board back in front here. We've got our player board and then our AI opponent up there. So we will get started real quick. There's a few things that I had to sit out once I moved the board over. So I want to show you those real quick. You have your score markers that I mentioned during player setup. They're going to go on this boat right here. You have those gears I mentioned that you're going to get with the tangent set. So the brown one goes on the left brown one, teal goes on the left teal, gold goes on the left gold. You have a lock I told you about. You want to grab that. You want to put it on your captain board, and that is going to be basically a signal to you that the captain's power is locked until you achieve your first trophy down here. So I think that's kind of all that got set out in between the sections. So we're going to first kind of talk about what you can do as a player, because that's going to help you understand Tangent a little better. And the main thing to realize is on a turn, you have 4 different actions that you can choose from. Now, one of these actions you can only do when a certain condition is met. It's called a recharge. So we're going to talk about that last. So there's really 3 actions that you have choice from each turn, and you're going to do one of these every turn. So the first one is placing a crew member. So these 3 guys are your crew members. This guy is your captain, but at the start of the game, since his power is locked, you can basically treat these 3 equally. We'll discuss some of the captain powers here shortly. But if you choose to place a crew member, what you're going to do is you're going to take a crew member and you're going to find a set of 2 hexagons to place on. So you'll see that the dinosaur is long enough where it will span 2 spots. All right, so you can place them on the tan spots, which are land. You can place them on the green, the kind of lime green spots that are mountains. If you do place it on a mountain, it costs 1 resource, so you got to pay any of your resources at your choice, but you have to pay 1. Even if you did something like this, where you're on 1 land and 1 mountain, you still have to pay a resource. All right, so once you place a worker, what does that mean? So one thing is, if you place it where an egg is, you automatically get that egg. And your egg is going to go in the leftmost empty spot in your little egg collector over here. And each spot either has an amount of victory points or a bonus. And so you'll trigger that right then. This victory point is brown, which means we do it right now. So I would grab that. Then you're going to look at all the neighboring hexagons. So there are these habitat tiles. There are also lakes. You can't go onto a lake. You can't place a dinosaur on a habitat tile. But the habitat tiles are going to help you get resources or cards. The lakes are possibly going to get filled up throughout the game to give you more spots to gain things on. So you're going to look at each adjacent hexagon, and let's just take this one for example. It's a coral. And so we have 2 choices. We can either gain 1 coral resource, or if you're not going to do that, you can look in the wilderness over here, which is the 6 face-up cards, and you can find one that matches. So this has coral up in the top right. You can match that, and you could grab this card. So for this one, we have 3 corals, so I need to take some combination of cards with coral on them or resources. I'm going to just go ahead and grab all 3, 1, 2, 3, and not worry about that card over there. You also have a choice to use a butterfly net. So I'm going to move him out of the way. Remember, we start with 1 butterfly net. You will see some special action icons. If you use a butterfly net, you'll trigger that special action. So there's differing ones around the board, like this would get you another coral. This would let you sweep, which means discard 3 of the cards, and you can do the first 3 or the second 3, and then refill them and pick a new card. The other thing you can do with a butterfly net is, say I go right here, you might be thinking, well, how do you even get this egg because it is in a lake? You can use your butterfly net and discard it and pick up the egg that's adjacent to you. All right, so I'm just going to go back there. I'm going to say I'm not going to use my butterfly net because I don't want to trigger any of those special actions. All right, so that is the first choice that you have. The second choice you have is going to be playing cards. And you're going to play cards into what's called your reserve. So it's kind of like your tableau in other games, but in this game it's called a reserve. So let's take a look at just one of the cards real quick so you can understand what you're looking at here. So we've already talked about the habitat tile icon that's in the top right. Species icons in the top left. You'll remember from setup there's 7 species. This smaller habitat icon is going to be the resources you have to pay to play this card. So you would have to pay 2 of these green fruits in order to put this card into your reserve. There's typically a red number here, though sometimes it's 0. That is the amount of victory points you get at the end of the game for having it in your reserve. And then this small icon tells you what type of card this is, and a lightning bolt means you're going to trigger this thing immediately. So you'd read it off when you play it and trigger. So one thing to note on a take a turn move, place a card, is that you can place up to 2 cards as long as you can afford them with the resources. So it is very smart to do 2 cards every time that you can, because if you're only playing 1 card, it becomes very inefficient and people are going to beat you to these achievements. So a couple of things about other cards. There's some cards like this blue one here that gives you some sort of condition, and every time it's met, you get to do what's on that side. Here's one of the ones that's got a 0, and it's because you get points at the end of the game for meeting certain criteria. There is an energy card right here. So for this one, when you place it, you get 2 energy on the card, and those are the little purple chits over there. And then in your turn, you can discard an energy and trigger this action. And then there are some cards that help you refill the energy once they're gone. And then lastly, there are these yellow recharge cards. I mentioned that there's a 4th option called recharge. And if you have these cards out whenever you recharge, then you get to do that action. Okay, so I'm going to look at my cards here. So let's just say this guy, he only costs 2 coral and 1 mushroom. So I would say pay 2 coral, pay 1 mushroom, and I'd put him out. And his special ability is to give energy back to a certain card. Now that's not useful to me because I don't have any energy, but you can see how that would work. Let's pretend that I had a second fruit because then I could play this guy. And so when you play him, if it's a lightning bolt, you can stack them like this, because the only real important thing is to see the symbols. And also you do need to know what is the last lightning bolt card you played, because there are going to be some cards that tell you trigger the last one. I could do now any special action on a fruit habitat, so I'll just choose that one and gain another fruit. So I paid 2 and then I got 1 back. So those were my 2 cards I played. That would be the end of my turn. The third thing you can do is grab an achievement with one of your trophies, or one of your you grab an achievement, you place your marker on it, and you get a trophy. So I'm not going to go into all the achievements, but typically the brown ones have to do with gathering up a certain amount of something. So 14 cards, 6 habitats of the same. And these cards, the way it works is the first player to get them goes on the top and gets the 15 points and a trophy. Now these down here, you have a couple dual species cards, and if someone can get a combination of these species and get to 8, you get 12 points, or 5 of them is 6 points. So for this, if you had, 7 birds and 1 crustacean, that equals 8, and you'd be able to grab that. And then these are similar, but they're only for single species. So if you do want to grab one of those, you're going to take one of your markers off, and there is something in action to trigger. So that would give me 3 points, and you're going to say, I have 3 lizards over here, and I would get 6 points. Now, when I said lizards over here, what does that mean? So you're going to count all the icons in your reserve, which is the cards down here, but the reserve also includes your eggs. So maybe I have, let's just pretend that I had 2 lizard eggs, and then I have the lizard icon here. So 1, 2, 3, I met that. But if I'm using eggs towards the achievement, you have to then hatch them. So you're going to turn them over on this side and place them back. And what that means is you cannot use them for another achievement. I could not get, 8 lizard cards and then say, oh, I have 8 lizard cards plus these 2 eggs to equal 10, because I've already used those eggs. So there are special abilities, kind of like that one, with an egg and some arrows around it, that would let you flip these back over, and then you could use them again. So once you've placed that there, triggered the thing, you would take a trophy. That's important because once the trophies run out, that's the end of the game. Everyone makes sure they have the same amount of turns, and then that's the game. All right, so we've talked about putting crew members out. We've talked about playing up to 2 cards at a time, and we've talked about how to grab an achievement once you've done it. So the 4th thing is recharging. And the rule about recharging is you've got to have all 3 workers out here. So once you have all 3 workers out there, maybe you don't have enough resources to play a card, you're going to take the recharge action. Recharging just means you're going to take your guys back to your board. You are going to move this time track token down the time track. And if it lands on something like that, that is a butterfly net, you would get that. If it lands on one of these time tokens, you're going to flip it over, and we have a circle, and then we're going to take our bag of goodies here, and everywhere there's a circle, we would put out an egg. Boom, boom, boom. So that's going to help more eggs come out on the board. You also have to deal down to a hand of 5 if you have more than 5, so you're going to choose what to discard. And then if you have any of these recharge actions, you are then going to trigger them and do them. And then that would be your turn. You would go to the next person or Tingent, and then you have your guys back here to play. A quick few things before we get to Tingent is I want to mention these icons down the scoring track. So if a person lands on this one at 5, 25, and 40, they get to take a habitat tile and place it on a lake. And if they place it on a lake that has an egg, they get the egg. And so this is going to help you gain more resources throughout the game. There are spots where you can get butterfly nets. And then at 30 and 50, you are going to be able to just grab a trophy off the board. Now, you don't get an achievement for free. You get the trophy, that's 3 points, and that helps trigger the end of the game. If you take a habitat token, make sure to put it back like that. Lastly, we kind of talked about sweeping, but you'll see some icons up there. If there's 2 brooms, you sweep the whole wilderness and refill it. If there's 1 broom, you either sweep this side or this side and refill it. So I think that's pretty much how a player's turn works. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll look at how Tingent plays. All right, welcome back. We are going to look at what it is to play the Tingent character. So it doesn't matter which difficulty you're on. The rules are going to be the same, just these dials on this board will be slightly different. So you don't have to change up anything really about how you're going to play Tingent. So we talked about the actions that a player uses. They would choose one of those actions like I described, and then after their turn is over, it's Tingent's turn. And so you're going to take the top card of the Tingent deck and flip it over. Now you'll see that it's got two colors, a sort of tan and a darker brown color. The side that you are going to be focused on is going to be whichever color the marker is currently on. So you see there's some tan and then it turns to brown down there. So for the first, half of the game, he'll be using this side. So when you flip it over, you're going to do the action here if you can, which most of the time you can, but there might be options that aren't available right then. But if you see an icon like that, that means that Tingent wants to take from the wilderness a card that is going to help him achieve whichever color gear was on this. You'll see it's a teal gear, so he would want a lizard. So you would look over here in the wilderness, and here is a lizard. If there are multiple lizards, he gets the one that has the most points. And then this stays face up and goes to his, you can make like a little pile. You want a spot where you can keep track of the different species icons because he is going to try to be getting these achievements down there. Once you do this action, then you move here, and if that is a red gear with a key in it, then that means you're going to take his little marker, move it once to the right, and then move on from there. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So at that point, his turn would be over, and you would just jump back to your turn. Okay, so let's flip another one over, see if we can see a few different icons. All right, so this means this set right here is going to be take his crew member, and I'll show you what the icon looks like for the captain, but take the crew member and place it where he can meet the goal of multiple flowers here. So you would take his crew member, and this spot right here would meet those criteria. If he gets an egg, awesome, it just goes in his egg pile. And then you're going to take this card and you're going to count up all of those symbols that he is touching. So 1, 2, and he gets 2 points. So he doesn't get resources, but he's going to grab points based off where he's being played. Then you can see that this gear looks quite a bit different from that gear. This is the gear that symbolizes that you do not move his marker on there. So I'm going to grab these cards. I'll look through them and show you. So here's the captain icon. It's got the little sash and crown. So that would mean that his captain, the one that has Tingent on it, would need to go out here, say like that, because that card wanted him to be next to fruit. And then he was next to 3 fruit, so he would get 1, 2, 3. And that also has a red gear with the key on it, so you would move this that way. You can see on here there are different actions. As soon as you move the marker onto them, you do them. So putting island or filling islands up, this would be just moving the time track as if he was recharging. And then you'll start seeing the little Tingent gears. When he lands on one of those, there are some rules as far as how that works down here. So I'm going to use a, let's see, the first one he would get to is a gold one. So let's just take this one for example. Nobody is on that. He wants to go, because that's where the gold gear is. He always wants to grab the top one. Sorry, that was not focused. He always wants to grab the top one if he can. So he does not have to meet this 8. In order to get the top, he just has to have more than the bottom. So if he had 6 or more dragon and mammals, then he would get to be able to say that. Boom. Now, if he does not have 6 or more, then he just gets the bottom space automatically, no matter if he has those or not. So he's almost always going to come away from those turns at least grabbing the bottom space. Now, where that might differ is here. So let's say he needs more than 3 lizards, but let's say he has 1 lizard. He couldn't grab this spot because he doesn't have more than 3, and he can't grab the bottom spot because I'm already there. The same rule applies for him as it does for you. You can only have 1 marker on each achievement. So if that were the case, he doesn't get to do that. Now, if he does place a marker, whether it be there or there, that color gear goes to the right one, and so then he starts focusing on that. Okay. And then again, if you get to this brown spot there, you would immediately take all the cards, whether they're played or not, shuffle them up, put them back down, and then from then on, when you draw them, you're going to use the dark brown side. All right, so the game goes back and forth just like normal. You'll notice I didn't talk about recharging. You're never going to recharge Tingent because if it says move his captain, you just move his captain from here to wherever the new spot is that it instructed you to. So the game will go much like it does in a multiplayer game. Once all of the trophies are gone, the game is over, and then you will score. And Tingent and the player score almost identical, except for a few things. But the main things that you're going to score have to do with, 1, your achievements. So you would count up all the points on the achievements and add those to the score track. You get 3 points per trophy that you have, so you would add that. All the cards that you played, you would go through and add up the red points there. And Tingent, any of his cards that are face up, you add those points. Now, the one difference is in these end-of-game cards for you, you would actually, count your lizards and get a point for each one. If Tingent had this card, any of these in-game cards, he just gets 5 points automatically from those. And then Tingent will have some face-down cards. So there's actions that will tell you just grab off the stack. And depending on your difficulty, that will tell you how many points Tingent gets for each face-down card. So in this case, we'd count all his face-down cards, and he would get 1 point apiece. And then for players, they get an added amount for leftover butterfly nets and resources. You add all those together and divide by 4. Tingent does not get anything like that because he has no resources or butterfly nets. And then whoever's got the most points wins. All right, so I think that's going to be it for the video. Sometimes I do like a gameplay, but this is pretty simple set of choices and actions. So I think that you probably got it from just seeing how the game is played. But please make sure to check out the website at boardgamebreakdown.com. We have other videos. We have written reviews and articles there. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've got quite a few videos still to produce here after this one, so I should be getting some more content up over the next couple weeks that I'd like to share with you guys. Check us out on Mastodon and Instagram, and I'll talk to you next time.